Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux with yet another Star Trek review, this time talking about Section 31. This is an original film for Star Trek, the first one since 2016, this time debuting on Paramount Plus. And I did not have a lot of hope going into this film because I watched the trailer. And that trailer was one of the most devastatingly awful things I've ever seen in my life. It was... There's no other way to say it, grotesque. It was a grotesque trailer. I could not believe what I was seeing. It looked just vapid and awful and visually busy and, oh man. And I think seeing that trailer is key into how you will respond to this film in a couple of ways. By seeing that trailer, you're accepting straight up that what you're getting isn't really Star Trek. It feels Star Trek adjacent, but it's not Star Trek. And it's also so badly executed, that trailer, that no matter what you watch afterwards is going to look better. And so I came out of Section 31 thinking, you know, it's not Star Trek. It's not Star Trek at all. But I had a good time with it. It felt like what Zack Snyder wanted to do with Rebel Moon's take on Star Wars. That sort of feels like what Section 31 is for the Star Trek universe, except it actually is fun throughout the film. It's Mission Impossible by way of Star Trek. And I enjoyed watching it. And so that's the positives I can give you. I also liked the characters and some of the performances and stuff like that. I thought were pretty all right. And the biggest, I guess, positive I can give is there's quite a bit of Easter eggs for Star Trek fans out there. The use of the black and white alien that we haven't seen much of since the original series. A character that is present in one of the best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, Yesterday's Enterprise, that gets more fleshed out in this film. A return of, Michelle Yeoh's character, I can't remember the character's name, from Star Trek Discovery, and it's always good to see more Michelle Yeoh. That said, if you are a fan of Star Trek, and purely just a fan at that, I think you should stay away, because for hardcore Star Trek purists that can't separate what Star Trek is from what they are getting, you're going to despise the film. And it's a film that lacks ideas, it lacks any philosophical underpinnings of any kind, it lacks conversation really between characters or setup on character motivations or really any execution of character growth beyond the archetypal characters you meet within the film proper, who you're constantly being told are bad guys but never really display bad sensibilities outside of right when they're introduced. And if they end up ultimately being the bad guy of the film, otherwise you're just constantly being told that they're bad guys, but nobody's ever really bad. Nobody's ever really even gray. They're just kind of slightly less good, but not really bad. I don't know. If you're coming from for the Star Trek, you're not gonna like it. Setting it, I believe, this is like set up in the mirror world, right? The mirror universe. You don't really get the feel of that really either, outside of being kind of visually told that in the opening logo of Star Trek, where like the mirror image kind of thing comes through, and I was kind of expecting a really more nuanced take on that. And if this is one thing this film doesn't offer, it's nuance of any kind. That said, the cast I really like. The scenes I enjoy. It kept me zigging and zagging, and some of the things I was ahead of and figured out before anybody else, and sometimes I didn't. And so that it is a film with some mild surprises. It's visually pretty interesting looking. I like the look of it. It doesn't look like Star Trek. It looks kind of Abrams-y Star Trek, but not even that. It looks even dissociated from that. And I liked those aspects of it. And as I say, I can't separate the fact that I did have a decent time while watching it. If you completely turn off your brain, which you must if you were to gain enjoyment for the film, I had a good time. And I think comparing this especially to Zack Snyder's 2 Rebel Moon films, I think this is definitely better than both of those. Because it does have a sensibility of fun to it, and I like the characters. I will say that the last 5 minutes, like, the film comes to a natural conclusion, and then it just has a 5-minute, like, tag-on ending scene that undercuts or undermines everything that came before it, any of the dramatic emotional heft that was present, any notion of sacrifice, completely undercut by this last 5-minute scene. When you think the movie should end is probably when you should stop the movie, because if you watch the next scene, you're just going to end up hating what you watched. And I don't think that's fair, because I feel like that was tagged on just in case people did respond to this, so they could excuse themselves and make a sequel. I think they should Rogue One this a little more, where they just commit to its more potentially dark ending. That being said, it's my understanding that this was originally a pilot for a TV show. And then Michelle Yeoh won her Oscar, and she didn't want to commit to a full-scale TV show anymore, and said that she'd be willing to return for maybe a series of movies. And this feels very much like a scripted television show that has been elevated in budget here and there to make it more movie, but it still feels like it's structured and has the rising climax fall that a structured TV show has. And that is kind of annoying. I think that in a lot of ways this is one of, if not the worst Star Trek movie, but I'm not going to give it a bad review, because I would much rather watch this than Star Trek Into Darkness. And I would much rather watch this than... Actually, that might be it. It's better than Star Trek Into Darkness, guys. You got that going for you. Even though I think in some respects Star Trek Nemesis, Star Trek The Motion Picture are worse movies, both of those films feature really strong usage of character and great memorable scenes with their characters. I like in Nemesis how Riker and all the stuff going on with the wedding, and how like Picard is really bumping into not having Riker as his number one anymore. I like in Star Trek The Motion Picture that there's so much interesting food for thought throughout the film that's just overwritten and overstretched beyond what it needed to be. And something like even Star Trek V that a lot of people hate, and I like that a little more than most, has the inarguably great scene where Bones is confronted by the death of his father. This doesn't have anything like that. So even though I might enjoy watching this more than any of those other ones that I just mentioned, those are better movies in that respect, because at least you're getting something out of them from Star Trek that feels Star Trek, that feels character-driven, thought-provoking, providing food for thought. And this just doesn't provide anything like that. It's vapid. But if you want to just turn off your brain and have a vapid good time, this is pretty solid. And especially if you like Mission Impossible style thrillers, give it a shot. It's not great, but it's not abysmal from a certain point of view. That's where I land. That's my high praise. That'll go on the box when they release the Blu-ray. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.